little hot in here. We appreciate very much the presence of each one here tonight. We'd like to welcome you to this assembly of the Lord's house. I'm very happy to be able to be here once again, and I appreciate another opportunity to be your speaker. For our study tonight, I'd like to go over to 2 Corinthians, and I'm going to read there in the 2nd chapter, and I'll read to introduce our study down at verse 11. Here we find the Apostle Paul gives us some very stern warning and something which you and I need to be paying attention to. The Bible reads like this: "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we're not ignorant of his devices." Now, Paul is simply saying, do not allow Satan, the devil, to get the advantage. Don't let him have the advantage. We need to be aware of his devices. And you know, one time a few years ago, I could have read that and everybody knew what I was talking about. Everybody was concerned about it. But let me tell you something about tonight. You know, the idea the devil's falling on hard times. There are many people who completely dismiss the idea of the devil, and I'll tell you about one in a few minutes. But I want to assure you tonight, as sure as I'm standing here before you, and you're sitting there in the audience, the devil is real. And he is working as hard as he can, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to take you to hell with him. And I want to assure you this too, he'll do it if you don't watch out. So we're going to talk about this for a little while. Before we get into it in any more detail, though, we want to use our privilege of prayer. If you will, arm yourself in some fashion while the brother selected words of prayer. I was sitting in the dentist's office a while back, and there was all kinds of magazines laying around there, and I'm shuffling through them trying to find something I might be interested in. And I picked up an old Time magazine. And you know what caused me to pick up this particular magazine? Right on the front of it said, "There's no scratch for Old Scratch." Now, Old Scratch is a name for the devil. And the idea was, we're no longer concerned about the devil. And I thought, well, you know, I'd like to know what they're thinking about that. So I turned over to the article in the magazine. Come to find out, the article was written by a professor in Notre Dame University. Now, Notre Dame is a Catholic school, if you remember that. And we find that this guy who preached, or who taught in this Catholic school, he was saying, there is no such thing as a devil. This is something, and this is what he said. This is the idea of the devil is just everything that's wicked, everything that's mean, everything that's evil. We just rake it up into one pile, and we call it the devil. It is the personification of everything that's evil. I read that and I thought, doesn't the devil love that? People do not want to believe that he's real. So he gets to go about his dastardly deeds without anybody being concerned about him, because the devil is not real. He is just a personification of evil. Now, folks, I want you to understand that that's not the case with the devil. He is not just a personification of evil. The devil is real. And it is something which, again, I'm afraid that people have forgotten about. In 1 Peter, the 5th chapter, down at verse 8, he says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour." You know what the word adversary means? Adversary means an opponent. Now, I can hardly read that verse without doing like this. An opponent. You know, do you ever think about it in this life that you and I are living, in this free country we're in, that there's some kind of a creature out there who is working as hard as he can to cause us to be lost? He is our opponent, our opposition. I'm afraid people don't think about that. You know, we come in and we get in our lazy boys and kick back and get us a glass of iced tea and turn on swamp people. We think everything's lovely. Well, everything's not lovely. There's a war going on. It is the war between the forces of good and evil. It is a war in which your soul is at jeopardy. And you need to know as much about that as you possibly can. I noticed also where Peter said that, and he says we have an adversary. He goes on to say that this adversary is the devil, and he is like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. Now, you know, I'm afraid we miss a lot of the teachings in the Bible because all that was back in olden days. For instance, you people here at London, have y'all had any roaring lion trouble lately? Probably not. You know, strange, you know, in Oklahoma where I live, I don't remember the last time we had any roaring lion trouble. So we may not understand what that's all about. One afternoon, I was sitting in somebody's living room, and they had the television on, and it was on one of these wildlife programs over in Africa. And the particular animal they were looking at that day was lions. And there was a big pride of these lions laying out under the trees, and they're just as calm as they can be. All the adult lions are laying there, and they're sleeping. Some of them's laying on their back with all 4 feet sticking up in the air. And the little kitten lions, they're rolling and wrestling around in the grass, just like a house cat. And you know all the rest of the creatures there, antelope and all kinds of deer-like critters, they're going about their business. They're grazing and going around. Some of them are almost close enough for the lions. They're going in and out, and everybody is happy. It's a beautiful scene. Well, in a minute, one of these lions stood up, and she began to rumble and growl around her chest. It was become obvious that she was overheard now, and she's ready to go out and kill something. Whenever the lion begins to growl around in their chest, they're going out to kill something. Now, everybody else knew this. This is like ringing the dinner bell. All these little antelope, they're jumping down, and they're nervous. You've seen those on TV, I imagine. You know, there's a little antelope over there that can stand out here and jump flat-footed over to the back door over there. That's what they're doing. They're springing around in every direction, because the lion is going out to kill something. And then the commentator said exactly what I think Paul undermined. He said the lion is most likely to catch the weak ones, the sick ones, the young ones, and those who get too far away from the rest of the herd. Now there's a message for us. Who is the devil going to get? Young Christians, weak Christians, Christians who get too far away from where they ought to be. Sick Christians, spiritually speaking. That's who he's going to get. So we need to beware of his devices. Listen, here's another passage, Jeremiah 5, verse 26. For among my people are found wicked men. They lay wait. As he that setteth snares, they set a trap. They catch men. They catch men. Who are these wicked men working for? They're working for the devil. What are they doing? They're setting traps and snares. What are they trying to catch? Men. You and me. These are the workmen of the devil. The devil does his dirty deeds through other men, and these men are going about doing all they possibly can to ensnare Christians. I've been an amateur trapper since I was about 10 years old, and there's a trap that has been in existence almost since the beginning of time. It is a snare. Back in the Bible days, they made snares out of twine and various vines that they could strip the bark off of and make snares. The snare, you put a loop in the snare and you hang it down over the trail where they expect some little animal to come by, and it comes by and sticks his head through the loop, and he just keeps walking because he doesn't know he's in any trouble. And in a minute, when he feels this noose tighten up on his neck, it's too late. He's scared then, and he jumps, and in just a matter of seconds, he's dead from strangulation. Now, we don't use twine and ropes anymore. We use aircraft cable. You make a noose in some aircraft cable, and you hang it down over the trail where the little fur-bearing animal's coming by that you're hoping to catch. And here he comes padding along. He's perfect with the world. As far as he's concerned, there's nothing going bad. And he runs his head through this snare, and it has a type of a lock on it that'll take up, but it won't release. And he sticks his head through, and he just keeps walking. The snare keeps tightening and tightening and tightening, and in a few minutes he feels it, and it's too late. He's already been had. And he may make a leap for life, but his life is soon strangled out of him. Now that's the way the Bible describes the devil and his snares. The person comes along, just like the little animal we were talking about. He is ensnared. He doesn't know it for a while. By the time he figures it out, it's too late. And the Bible says that's what these men that work for the devil are trying to do. They're trying to snare or to catch men. Well, I find that the devil is doing the same thing. And you know, he is using the same old stunts he always has. Now, he keeps them up to cutting edge. He keeps them up to modern times, but basically it's some of the same things. I'm going to talk about 3 things tonight, and each one of these is as old as the world itself, just about, as far as the way that the devil works. But I want to notice them for our benefit in a modern age. We're going to talk about 3 different devices that the devil uses. Now, the first one, and I'm going to use a special word to describe this, the devil does not want you to be a theist. Now, a theist is a God believer. He believes in God. The devil doesn't want you to believe in God. And if he possibly can, he'll keep you from it. This is nothing new whatsoever. When I was working on the commentary for the book of Acts, I learned about some people who were just exactly what the devil wanted. These people, they're referred to in the 17th chapter of the book of Acts as Epicureans. In case you don't know what an Epicurean is, they were followers of a Greek scholar by the name of Epicurus. Epicurus' main doctrine was that there is no such thing as judgment. There is no such thing as accountability. There is no such thing as a higher power than the human being. The human being is the supreme creature of the universe. There's nobody higher than he is. And since this is the case, here's all you have to do. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. And you just like the little golf rover, you'll just be dead all over. As a result of that, this is a wicked bunch of people. There's no hedges to keep them from being anything else. They do whatever they want to do. They have no accountability. Well, today, we don't have people. Well, there really are. There are a few, I'll correct myself. There are a few people who still call themselves Epicureans. But for the most part, this has changed and it's up to date. Now these people call themselves humanists. A humanist believes the exact same doctrine as an Epicurean. He thinks the human being is the superior creature of the universe. He thinks that all it is what's right here and now. You don't have to worry about accountability. You don't have to worry about judgment. You know, our society sure shies away from the idea of accountability. We got no-fault insurance. We got no-fault divorce. We got no-fault this and that and the other because nobody wants to be accountable. But I'll assure you, if 2 cars run together out on the road, somebody's at fault. But people do not want to be held accountable. This is something in our day and time that's quite amazing, that a person can find out that he has reached the point where he has no confidence or any belief in God whatsoever. Now you say, well, you know, that's a bunch of pagans and a bunch of heathens. Not necessarily. You might be surprised at the people that I know of who've left what they one time believed. And they've gone off after this idea that there's no accountability to God, that they're going to do whatever they want to do. Now, I do not understand this, but I'm not going to name any names tonight. But I know of people, if you'd like to know a little more about them, I'll tell you about it in private. One particular group of people I know, a man and his wife, they were members of the Lord's church for many years. The woman was raised in the church, and one day, for whatever reason, and I've quizzed them for years to tell me what led them off, they suddenly woke up and decided, there's no God. I am the supreme creature of the universe. And I've asked the woman, what if you want to pray for your children? What do you do? What if they're sick and you need to pray for them? What if you need to pray for your husband? He's deathly sick and you need to pray for him. What if you need to pray for yourself? What do you do? She said, I don't do anything. There's nobody in the universe bigger than I am. I don't know about you, but I'll tell you about me. I'd hate to think I was in this world all by myself. That there's nobody here bigger than I am that I can call upon. That there's nobody bigger than I am that I can put my trust in and know for sure that it's going to be for good. I would hate to live a life like that. But that's what these people basically do. I have never been able to understand how a person who is familiar with the Lord's church can leave. Just walk off. But they do. And there's plenty of evidence of this. People raised in the church, they understand what the church is all about. They know the gospel of Jesus Christ, and they go off into denominationalism. They go off into some liberalism. They go off to one of these happening now churches. I will never understand that. I cannot imagine it. If you ever hear that I've left the Lord's church, don't look for me down for local denomination. I'll be down on the creek bank. Because that's the only thing I'd be interested in. To leave the Lord's house, you turn your back on all of it. You turned your back on God and your responsibility to Him. You let the gate down. And you know when you let the gate down, the sky is the limit. And that's what's happened. That has happened in a lot of people's lives. The idea is the devil has taken God away from them. When I heard about these humanists, I got me a little book called The Humanist Manifesto. This is what the humanists believe. I got that because I don't like to talk about people or things if I don't know for sure what they believe. So I read this little book, The Humanist Manifesto, and there's one place in it that they basically tell you what their doctrine wraps around. And here's it is, and this is direct quotation. They say the way to determine the existence and value of any and all realities is by means of an intelligent inquiry. Sounds really smart, doesn't it? The way you can tell whether something really exists or not is by intelligent inquiry. So I got to thinking, I wonder if I can prove God exists by intelligent inquiry. When I went to college, my last semester, I took a semester in education. I wanted to do that so I could get a teaching certificate in case I ever wanted to. I had a great teacher in this class, and he taught us a lot of things, taught me a lot of things that I didn't know at the time would carry over into my preaching. But he told us this. He said there's only two ways you learn anything. Just two ways to learn anything. He said the first way is by our experience. We learn things by experience. And you know, you've heard the old adage, experience is a hard teacher, or experience is a difficult teacher. Well, there's many things you don't want to learn by experience because it is a hard teacher. Let me illustrate it like this. Let me say back when I was a little boy, well, really, I never was a little boy, but back when I was real young, suppose that we had an open fire out here, and I'm real young, I've not had much experience, and I walk over and stick my finger in the fire. Will my mama have to run over there and say, son, take your finger out of the fire, that's bad? No. You know, just like that, I learned about it instantaneously. I know this is bad, and I don't want to be doing this on a regular basis. Now, how did I learn that? I learned that by my experience. That's why they call it a hard teacher. Now, there's an easier way to learn the same thing. And it's the second way that we learn everything we know. It is from the experiences of others. Now, a combination of our experience and the experiences of others is how we know everything we know. Now, you can test this for yourself if you want to, and you'll find out this is true. For instance, tonight, I've been talking about God. I've talked about God several times. I've called the word God several times. Now, how do I know about God? Well, let's use our rules. Did I learn about God by my personal experience? And I'll have to tell you no. I've never been able to see God with my eyes. I've never heard His voice in my ears. I've never been able to touch Him. In no physical way have I experienced God. But I still know about Him. So, what's the other way? From the experiences of others. I believe that there have been others, many others, who've heard the voice of God in their ears. I believe that there's been at least one man who saw the backside of God. I believe that there have been thousands of people that have seen the miraculous power of God. And there have been a number of people that wrote by the inspiration of God. Inspiration means God breathed. He breathed these words and they wrote them down. Any number of people. That's how I know about God. Now, if that had not happened, if somebody else hadn't experienced God, we wouldn't know about Him. But we know about Him. As a result of that, I'm able to say, by the determination that the humanists used, by inquiry, by the idea of intelligent inquiry, I know about God. So can you. I've got to think about what I get right here. In the first chapter of the book of Romans, here we find the Apostle Paul telling what the difference was in the Jews and the Gentiles. Do you know that? You know why there was a group of people on this earth that were called Jews? And they were automatically the people of God by their birthright. And then the vast majority of people on this earth are called Gentiles. You know why that was? Did God just look down here on this earth and all these Jews, he says, I just love you guys. Y'all are going to be my special people. And everybody else, the Gentiles, that word means nations, everybody else, sorry, I don't have anything for you. Well, it wasn't that way. From the beginning, Jews and Gentiles had the same opportunity. In Romans 1, he says, beginning there at verse 19, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has showed it unto them. He's talking about the Gentiles. God showed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so they're without excuse. Now don't forget that little phrase there, the last one I read. There's no excuse not to believe in God. He has revealed himself unto us. He has revealed himself in many ways. And I illustrate it like this. You people here in Kentucky, this particular area of Kentucky, live in a pretty part of the world. This is a beautiful part of the world. Have you ever been down here on the lake where the sun rises? Most of you have, probably. When you see that sunrise over there in the east, you ought to be able to see God. When you see it set glorious over the west in a ball of fire, you ought to be able to see God. When you look at these pretty flowers out here by the side of the road, you should see God. When you look at a little baby's face, you should be able to see God. He has revealed himself unto us, so we are without excuse. No excuse not to believe in God. But as I said, if the devil can, he'll take it away from you. You've heard of Karl Marx, probably. Karl Marx is given credit for starting communism here on this earth. Karl Marx said one time and long ago, he said that religion is the bomb of the people. Now, he meant in his day and time, if a person had a need for something, if he got into something he couldn't deal with, he turned to religion. That was the bomb of the people of the days of Karl Marx. Not anymore. I read a fellow the other day, and I believe he's right. He said, today, atheism is the bomb of the people. No accounting day, no judgment. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you die. And people soak that up and run with it, much to their surprise. When they step off into eternity, they're going to find out there is a God. Here's the way we wind this one up. The devil wants you to be an atheist. You don't believe in him. And as I said, I know of people raised in the church that the devil has taken God away from them. Listen to this. Psalms 14, verse 1. The fool say in his heart, there is no God. They're corrupt. They've done abominable works. There is none that doeth good. Don't let the devil take God away from you. Don't let him steal away from you the power of God and salvation. Don't let him dull your life down till you lose sight of heaven and your priorities get warped by all the things of this world. Keep your heart set on heaven. Keep your sights clean for heaven. But the devil working against you as hard as he can. That's a hard job sometimes. But everybody here can do it. You can do that. It is a matter of getting everything where it ought to be as far as your priority is concerned. Number two, this next one, I dare say you haven't heard about it. Now that always scares me. Somebody says, I'm going to tell you something you've never heard about. It's scary. Because everything in the Bible has been heard about for hundreds of years. But this is sort of an idea which we got into now that I recently had brought upon me. The devil, if he possibly can, wants to keep you broke. He wants to keep you in debt. He wants to keep you in debt. Now, this is not a new problem. As a matter of fact, it's old too. Y'all remember when God spoke to Moses back a long time ago in Exodus, the book of Exodus, and he told Moses to go in and tell Pharaoh, turn my people loose that they may go out in the wilderness and worship me. This begins in Exodus about 8, and it goes to 8, 9, 10 along in there. And you remember Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh to let Israel go. And this goes through 10 plagues, compromises the devil tries to make to keep Israel in bondage. Finally, they get to a compromise, and now they have trouble. They want to go out in the wilderness. He didn't want them to go out in the wilderness. They finally settled that, you out in the wilderness. He didn't want them to go very far, and they finally got that fixed. He said, go as far as you want to. They wanted to take the kids and the women with them, and he didn't want that. But finally he said, take the kids and go on. Only I will keep your flocks and herds. Now what's that? What does Israel want to do? They want to go out in the wilderness and worship God. How do they worship God? By blood sacrifices. Now, so what if Israel gets way out in the wilderness somewhere? If they don't have any animals, they can't worship God. Nothing to sacrifice. As you see, Pharaoh was a very clever politician. He's still going to maintain his hold on Israel. Well, today the devil offers the same opportunity, but I'm sorry to say he has much better results with this. He tells us to go ahead and do whatever you want to do. Don't be concerned about God. Now this was brought to my attention. Now it's probably been 4 years ago. After services, one place I was at, there were some people hanging back. Man, his wife, and 2 or 3 little kids. Now that happens once in a while. They were waiting for everybody to leave. They wanted to tell me something. And that's fine. Listen, people, I'm very much concerned. You young couples with young families, I'm very interested in you. If I can help you any way I can, I will. I knew these people wanted to ask me something. So I stalled around there. Exactly everybody's gone. And they come up, and the woman's kind of leading. She said, we need to talk to you about a problem we have. I said, okay. You never know. She said, we don't have anything to return to God, like the Bible teaches. You know, the Bible teaches us to lay by and store up on the first day of the week as we've been prospered, that we are to give as we purposed in our heart. This is something which in 2 Corinthians 9, verse 7 and 8, and 1 Corinthians 16, 2 teaches us. We give back to God as we have purposed and as we prosper. She said, we don't have anything. Now I knew these people pretty well. I said to her, don't you have a job? Yeah. This is in California, by the way, and I want you to understand people out there get paid better than the rest of us used to do. Don't you have a job? Yeah. I said, doesn't your husband have a job? Yeah. And you don't have anything to give back to the Lord? Not a thing. What was us? What are we going to do? Now I'm old enough now that the answer comes quicker than it used to. And almost immediately I knew what the right answer was. I told him, I said, let me tell you what to do. You have to put God first. Everybody should understand it is our purpose to put God first. The Bible says in Matthew 6, verse 33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things, that's everything else, will be added unto you. So here's what I told him. I said, here's what you do. Put God first, and when you get your checks, take God's part off of the top. Get it first. Whatever you want to, whatever you prosper and as you purpose. Get God's first. And then scatter the rest of it around. 2, 3, 4, ad nauseam, however many you got. And you know when I said it, I thought that's the right answer. That is the right answer, by the way. But you know, I looked at her and I could tell. That was incredible to her. They weren't going to do that. This is incredible. Is it God's fault that they don't have a dime to spend to return back to Him? Not at all. It's not His fault. They have prospered. They should be willing to give back a portion to God. One time I got in a snare. I was preaching at a place, and every night I was riding this building with this man and his old dad. Now, people set you up. I've been set up plenty of times, but this is really a bad one. Me and the old man is sitting in the back seat, and we're coming home from services one night, and the son said, what do you think about giving? I said, well, the Bible teaches we're supposed to give back to God a portion that He's given us. God doesn't need it, you understand? He's got everything. All this stuff's His already. But these funds are useful for things like spreading the gospel. So I said, you know, we're supposed to give back to God. Well, I didn't know I was stepping in the middle of a family feud. The old man said, well, I'll tell you something. I came through the Depression. And he said it was all we could do to rake and scrape and put beans on the table. We didn't have anything to give to God. Now, back at that day and time, the only tact I had was a tact. So I told him, I said, well, I'll tell you something. I believe if you'd have give God His first, you'd have more beans on the table.
Amen.
And I think that's right, too. But somehow we let something get in our way. And I'm going to tell you what it is. It is our pursuit for stuff and fun, which mostly is funded by credit cards. I want to say a word right here. Now, you young people, you don't have to stop your ears up or nothing. It's not a bad word, but it's probably a word you never have heard. And probably a lot of you young parents have never heard this either. The word is, you ready? Anticipation. You know what that is? Probably not. You probably never have anticipated anything. And you children, for sure, probably haven't anticipated anything. And here's the reason. We've got to the point where our kids can't even pick their head up off the pillow. We buy them a tricycle. They can't even walk, and we got them a bicycle. They can't drive, and we got them a car. They don't get a chance to anticipate it. The best part, a lot of times, the anticipation. We used to, down in Ada, Oklahoma, where I lived, I was about 12 or 13 years old. We had an Otasco store, Oklahoma Tire and Supply, and they carried everything. They had especially sporting goods that I liked. They had all kinds of hardware in there, but they had a trap too. There's something else you probably won't know about. They had big windows out in front of the store, and we used to window shop. I told you probably never heard of that. We'd go down the streets, you know, and we'd look in the windows, and they put all the good stuff in the windows. And one time I was coming by Old Tasco, and I looked in the window. I mean, I'm here to tell you, right there, just past the glass, was the thing I wanted that'd make my life complete. So I jerked the door open and run in there. Just so happened the manager of the store saw me. And here he come. He said, son, can I help you? And I said, could I see that right there? Well, he reached over and got it and handed it to me. I looked at the price tag and it just blew me away. I thought, I'll never have that. And the manager said, son, start saving your money. Save your money up. And you'll have it before you know it. So I did. I started putting up all my pecan picking up money, all my hay hauling money, all my birthday money. I began to hoard it up. And you know, several months. But after several months, one day I looked in there. I got it, just the right amount. I've got the money. So I get the money in my hand. I don't even want to put it in my pocket. I've got it in my hand. And I run back down to the Old Tasco store, and I'm afraid it's gone. Oh, it's still there. Now, they probably had a dozen or two back to back. But there it was. So I went in the door. Manager saw me. Here he came. I said, got the money. He said, good for you. And he reached over there and got this item that I wanted. And the funniest feeling come over me. I mean, it was a strange, strange feeling. You know, I changed my mind. I had this now that I could have because I had the money. But I don't want it now. Is that funny? So I looked at my money and I looked at that item and I said, I'm sorry, sir, but I've changed my mind. And I went up the door and went running off down the street happy as a lark. Now, the good part of that was the anticipation, the saving, the getting ready. Nobody does that anymore. They just grab it up and swipe it across the machine, and they forget that the bill's coming in. but they don't get to enjoy the good part. Let me tell you another one. My brother, I have a brother that's a little 2 years younger than I am, and one day, we were probably 12, I was about 12, he was about 10, somewhere like that. We're laying in the floor in my home, dead of the winter time, and we had a Montgomery Ward catalog. You know, they used to come around, it was about that thick. Sears put out one too. We just looked forward to getting the Montgomery Ward. And we'd open it up where we like to look. And Bill, my brother and I, we were laying there looking. My daddy's sitting there in his chair. And we're just, we're so excited to be looking at all this stuff. And finally I said, Daddy, could we have this? And Daddy said, just circle it. Just circle it. So I grabbed a pencil and I circled it. And you know, we're on a roll now. And Bill said, could I have this? And Daddy said, circle it. So he got the pencil and he circled it. And we did a couple more items. And I'm beginning to get a little leery already. And I said, Daddy, we going to get this stuff? He said, no, you just get the circle. Well, let me tell you, there's a little bit more. Darlene and I got married, my wife, and one day she's looking at the catalog, and she said, Joe, could I have this? And my mind went back to old days, and I said, just circle it. Well, it didn't work so good with her. But you see, what I'm saying is we're in another age and we're missing out on some of the good things. Some of the good things that we ought to be enjoying. Now, I'm not much on this, but I want to read something to you. Some of y'all may be Star Trek fans. Dr. Spock, Mr. Spock, said this one time. After a time, you may find that having is not so pleasing a thing after all as wanting. It is not logical, but it's true. The having is not as fun as the wanting, Mr. Spock said. And I think he knew what he was talking about. But, as I said, we keep ourselves in debt by getting everything that we think we want. There's another man that same year that I met the man and his wife. He come by, started a meeting on Sunday, and he come by, he and his family, and he went out the door and he said, see you next Sunday. I said, wait a minute, we're going to have services every night this week. Aren't you going to be here then? And he looked at me hangdog, and I knew this guy really well. He said, we don't have enough money to buy gas to come to church. We don't have enough money. And I thought, no, we don't have any money. Whoa, what's we going to do? Well, we could turn on our cable TV, or we might get on the internet, or we could play some video games, or we could get our cell phones out and call Hong Kong or some other interesting place, or we could get on the computer. We don't have any money because we never every gizmo, every gadget that comes out, we got to have it. Now, if that sounds sarcastic to you, that's because it is. And I don't have much sympathy for that sort of a thing. I knew that fella had enough money to buy gas to come to church, especially if he didn't spend it on everything that he thought he had to have. Credit cards are a trap. There are people, and there may be some of them around here in this room, who should not have a credit card. When I was working on this lesson, we had a brother who ran an article in one of the church papers, and it was just what I wanted, and I called him up and I asked him, did he mind if I used his article? He said, no. He said, just go ahead and use it. So I have. He said he got in a little bit of a bind with his finances, so he borrowed some money from his credit card. You can do that. He borrowed, he said, $1,450. He thought that would bail him out of the problem he was in. He said he paid on it for a year. At the end of the year, he had paid a total of $95. Now let's see, 95 for $1,450. Now he just owes $1,355. Is that right? some of you accountants or CPAs or somebody that might be here, you might can explain this to us. All right. You know, at the end of the year, what he owed. $1,491. How's that possible? That's possible due to the effect of interest compounded at 18.5%. It will eat you up. He said by the end of the time that he got this paid, if he just paid the bare minimum, that's all these nice people want you to do. They don't want to put yourself in a spring. Just pay the bare minimum. He said if he paid it out by the bare minimum, by the time he got it paid and take him 7 years, he would have spent $2,699. Now, I don't know what you think. I think that's a crime. But people go for it. They just walk up there and slap it down. Like there's no tomorrow. There's no payoff coming. Now, how do you think that happens? That's the devil. That is the devil. He wants to keep you broke. We have a sister at the church at home that borrows money from these little quickie loan places. Their maximum, thank the good Lord, is $300. She'll borrow $300. She slaves and works to pay it back and gripes all the time. Finally, she gets it paid back. It won't be 3 days, so she'll get another call, and they'll say, Miss So-and-so, we got a check for $300 laying down here on the desk. All you got to do is stop and get it. She stops and gets it. The devil's got her going again. You know, the people that I have my credit card with, I have a credit card. In fact, I get some of the devil's money back. I get paid every month. If I pay my card off, which I do every month, I get a little rebate. But I find out that this is something, again, that you need to be very much concerned about. These people that I have my card with, every so often, just out of the clear blue, I get an envelope, and this envelope has a little bitty checkbook in it. Usually has 3 checks in it. These checks are made out, usually, for $300. And all I have to do is sign them, and go down and buy me some new stuff. So you know what I do? I just sign all 3 of them, take it downtown, buy me $900 worth of new stuff. Is that what you think? You know what I do with those 3 checks? I carry them up as good as I can with my fingers, and then I drop them in the shredder. I hope they go off into oblivion, because I don't want somebody else to find them and go down and have $900 worth of stuff. Having fun on my account. Now you speak, is that accident? That's no accident. People are being taken advantage of. You've got the steel wire around your neck. You know what that does for you? That keeps you from being useful in the Lord's cause. You know, being an elder, you have to be able to control your finances. The reason for that is so you can not only support your family, you can help someone else. That's a requirement. It is something which you and I need to be aware of. So here's what I would tell you. Mamas and daddies, teach your children to give. At first, you'll have to give them a little money. Give them a little money to put in the treasury of the Lord when it comes around. When they go to have a job, teach them to give them whatever small portion it is back to the Lord. Start that habit early. And you be sure that you do your part. We have a little guy at home. He has Down syndrome. He's already lived longer than most people thought he would. He's about 32, 3 years old now. And he loves to come to church. He wears a 3-piece suit, a vest. He just loves to get decked up and go to church. He likes to sing. And one Sunday morning, I was standing back at the back door, and here he come. And I could tell he was not happy. He had his lips pooched out, and he walked up to me and he said, "Joe, they didn't let me give today." I said, "What happened?" He said, "They just passed me by." And I said, "Well, that won't happen anymore." He said, "Can I give my money to you?" I said, "Sure." And I'll see it gets in the treasury of the church. Here's what he did. Put both hands in his pockets. He come up with a quarter and a dime. He handed them over to me, and he left just as happy as he could be. man standing there watching that, and he said, "Did you take his money?" I said, "I sure did. And I suspect he gave more this morning than anybody else here." Oh, he had. Now, you see, he had a heart to return unto God a portion of that which God had blessed him with. Malachi said in the 3rd chapter, verse 80, "Well, a man robbed God, yet you robbed me. But you say, wherein we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings." It is possible for us to rob God. Mr. James Dobson, who writes these child-rearing books, he said in one of his books, in our effort to give our children everything which we never had, we failed to give them what we did have. A mama and a daddy who had time for them. His reference was that people are so deep in debt nowadays, it takes two people trying to make a living. They got their nose to the grindstone so hard, they can hardly look up. Let me leave you with one verse. This verse is Proverbs 22, verse 7. Now listen to this verse. "The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." The rich rule the poor, and the borrower serves the lender. How do you like that? I don't like that at all. And you want to avoid that as much as you can. Last of all for this evening, and this won't take long, we're running a little longer than I usually do, but this last one is important. The devil also wants you to be envious of the world. He wants you to envy the world. And he's doing all he can to try to make that happen. The character I want to use to illustrate this is a fellow you might not expect. This fellow I'm going to notice is King David. The Bible said David is a man after God's own heart. David gets himself in some serious trouble. And you know, I'm thankful David's in the Bible. He's sort of like the Apostle Peter. David makes a lot of mistakes. But he turns himself back and he comes back to God. And you and I can do the same thing. We'll make mistakes too, but we can come back. Let's see if we can catch up on what David's doing. In Psalms 73 is the story that I want to read. And here we find David is telling us something. He says it like this, beginning at verse 1. "Truly God is good to Israel, even to them which have a clean heart. But as for me, my steps were almost gone. My steps had well nigh slipped. For I was envious at the foolish when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. For there are no bands in their death, but their strength is firm. They are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men. Therefore pride compasses them about. Violence covereth them as a garment. Their eyes stand out with fatness. They have more than the heart could wish. They are corrupt and speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak loftily. They set their mouth against the heavens, and their tongue walketh through the earth. Therefore his people return hither, and waters of a full cup are run out of them." Now David said, look at the world. Look at them. They're prosperous. They have no concerns about death. They have no problems. They have violence. Their eyes stand out with fatness. They're corrupt. They say whatever they want to. On the other hand, bad things happen to good people. How is that? David said he was envious of the world. And you know, I'm sorry to say that we have people today that envy the world. All young people, please listen to me. There's nothing out there for you to be envious about. You know, I find the world today, you could look at it and you can say, look out here, aren't these people prospering? Well, they got all the money in the world. They drink, they use drugs, they party, they have extramarital sex, premarital sex, homosexual sex. They have perversion of all kinds. Aren't they having a good time? They're having such a good time. I told y'all the other day that I never run out of examples, and I mentioned Whitney Houston for the benefit of those who were not here. Whitney Houston, when I first saw her, was a young black girl, pretty young black girl about 15. And when I first saw her picture, she was singing at the church. And there's nobody had a voice quite like her. So very quickly she rose to the top of her career. She is the best that there was at that particular time. Nobody else could duplicate her. She had the world by the tail. She had everybody bowed and scraping her. She was having a great time, wasn't she? She was having such a great time one night before she was to receive another reward. She went in and got in her bathtub, and she was so drunk and so high that she couldn't even hold her head up out of the water. She drowned. Isn't that a story of pity? Isn't that a tragedy? Had everything, apparently, like we think we might need. And she's so trying to escape this world that she drowned. I think that's a crime. That somebody you think is so successful, why aren't they happy? I'll tell you why they're not happy. They're looking for happiness in all the wrong places. And this is illustrated in several different ways. I hate to tell you this, but the best illustrations for what I'm about to tell you are beer commercials. Beer commercials. You know, if you ever notice a beer commercial, notice the people in it. The people in beer commercials are young people, young men. They're buffed young men. They're handsome young men, and they're standing around drinking beer and having a great time. They're laughing and everything's going on around them. You ever notice the girls? The girls are beautiful women. Every one of them is beautiful. What are they doing? They're drinking beer, laughing and singing. They're having a great time. What is that teaching you? Well, maybe, you know, maybe if I was a handsome young man and I drank beer, some of them women would pay attention to me. Or, you know, if I was a beautiful young woman and I drank beer and sang songs and danced around, maybe some of those handsome young men would pay attention to me. That's what it's all about. Now, the way you can know that, did you ever notice in a beer commercial, you ever see them with a bunch of old pot-bellied men in there? Snuffling down the corners of their mouth, raggedy and unshaven? You ever see a bunch of scaggy old women, stringy-haired and snaggle-toothed? No. You don't want to think if you drank beer, it'd make you snaggle-toothed, do you? Now, what is it? They're showing us what we think it should be, when in all reality, it's the furthest thing from what happens. There used to be a beer company. I don't even know if they're still in business. I haven't seen their ad in a long time. They used to say that their beer was the finest product of the brewer's art. Now, they're not telling you the truth. You know what the finest product, or not the finest, you know what the product of the brewer's art is? Ruddy rags and mangled young bodies because someone was driving drunk. Tears of anguish cried by mothers and fathers at the loss of their sons and daughters because they were drunk. Their lives wasted by slavery to alcohol. They don't talk about anxious days and sleepless nights, not knowing that they've contracted some incurable disease that will cause you to die a slow, rapid death. They don't talk about babies having babies because they were out having a little fun. They don't talk about the guilt brought on by killing your own flesh in abortion because you didn't know who the daddy was. They don't talk about young girls and young boys that sell their bodies for more drugs to momentarily quench the addiction that's going to require more and more and more. They don't talk about babies born to addicted mothers because their mothers were high on drugs. They don't talk about families broken up by divorce due to the violation of the marriage vow because someone was out having a little fun. Now, friends, that's a product of the brewer's art. Does that make you jealous? I'm amazed at us, how we think that we're missing something. How would you like to go to bed Sunday night and Monday morning you don't know where you were? You don't know whether you're going to have a baby. You don't know if you hurt somebody. You don't know if you did something, a crime. You know, people wake up like that every Monday morning. The way I know that is that I've had them say that. You know what it is? What kind of life is that? Does that make you jealous? Wouldn't you like to wake up Monday morning and not know if you had AIDS or not? Let's get David again. Going on to verse 17, David says in Psalm 73, "Until I went to the sanctuary of God, then understood my end. Surely thou didst set them in slippery places. Thou castest them down in destruction. How are they brought into desolation as in a moment? They are utterly consumed with terrors, as a dream when one awaketh. So, Lord, when thou awakest them, thou shalt despise their image." You ever have a dream? Most of us have. when you woke up, you had to think a minute if it's real or not. I had those kind of things. Yeah, all of a sudden you wake up and you think, is this real? Is this really happening? Now, how would you like to have a life like that? That's what David's talking about. I've told y'all already, I'm old enough now to understand the brevity of life. I've been telling people for 51 years, life's short. I know that now. Life is short, everybody. And how would you like for your life to be like a dream? One day you wake up and it's over. It's done. And here's the tragedy to me. I see young people in this condition. They slough off their life and wake up in a condition they never thought they'd be in. There is nothing in the world worth not having a clear conscience toward God. I'm ready to draw our lesson to a close. David does it for us. Look a little further. Verse 23. Nevertheless, I will contend with thee. Thou hast holden me by my right hand. Thou guidest me by thy counsel, and afterward receive me to glory. Whom have I in heaven but thee? There is none upon the earth that I desire besides thee. My flesh and my heart faileth, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. For lo, they that are far from thee shall perish. They has destroyed all, ye have destroyed all them that go a-whoring from thee. But as for me, it is good for me to draw near to God. I put my trust in the Lord God, that I may declare all thy works. It's good for us to draw near to God too. Nothing out there that you need to do yourself. Is there anybody here tonight that's not a Christian? Would you like to become one? You're not missing anything if you're out here in the world, but you may lose everything. There's a high price on low living. You haven't figured it out. You need to become one who is a child of God. We point this out every time. Jesus said in John 8, verse 24, except you believe that I am He, you'll die in your sins. We have to believe in Jesus. Listen to Jesus again. Luke 13, verse 3. He said, I tell you, neighbor, except you repent, you shall all likewise perish. Matthew 10, verse 32, the Lord says, if you'll confess me before men, I will confess you before my Father which is in heaven. And Jesus said in Mark 16, verse 16, he that believeth and is baptized shall be saved. Have you ever put those steps in your life? If you haven't, you need to. You need to be able to go home tonight with the assurance if something happened to you, you'd be saved. Is there a child of God here with us this evening? You need to make some correction in your Christian life. Why don't you do so? Why don't you be the class? Won't you come? Always stand and always say.